You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world, this is the Wells Report. Good morning, I'm John David Wells. Welcome to the broadcast. I know I've been gone a while, but I am back for a couple of more days. More about that coming up in just a couple of seconds. What do we do on this broadcast? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We make commentary. That is not news. That is opinion. Yours and mine. Let's get together and debate. What do you say? News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Stunning storms across the Midwest. USA Today reports a swath of storms went through the Midwest. After 2 days of brutal weather, that blasted across the plains, killing at least 4 people in Oklahoma, destroying homes, knocking out power to tens of thousands. The storm system threatened Texas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and Iowa throughout the night. AccuWeather officials said that it was an amazing storm that led to deadly results. Officials in Oklahoma reported 2 deaths, including a 4-month-old baby. In the Hughes County town of Holdenville, this after storms and tornadoes swept through the area over the weekend. And multiple media outlets reported on this. We have a report from CNN. Let's take a look as we begin our broadcast on Monday morning.
Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt increased to 4 the number of storm-related deaths in his state, with one county alone reporting at least 30 injuries. Officials had earlier said there's an infant among those who died. The governor said 2 people died in the city of Ada, located about 85 miles southeast of Oklahoma City. A 3rd person died in Marietta, Oklahoma, which is located on Interstate 35, about 115 miles south of Oklahoma City. The 4th person died in Sulphur, a city the governor visited on Sunday to assess the damage. Governor Stitt had earlier declared an emergency disaster in an area that includes Marietta. Altogether, the governor's declaration includes 12 counties. The declaration states that severe storms, tornadoes, straight-line winds, hail, and flooding affected different parts of Oklahoma. The damage in Sulphur, the governor said, was hard to watch.
Early reports, they think this is an F4, just kind of blowing right through downtown here. And I just haven't seen this much destruction from my time as governor. You just can't believe the destruction. Like, it seems like every business in downtown has been destroyed now here in Sulphur.
The Oklahoma Department of Emergency Management said it has received reports of injuries, property damage, flooding, and downed power lines and trees across several counties. We're also getting new images of severe flooding in the city of Tonkawa, located about 90 miles north of Oklahoma City. And this all happened in the wake of yet another series of powerful storms that left a devastating trail of destruction in Nebraska. An Omaha resident described to CNN affiliate KETV what it was like to hear a tornado coming.
Just like the movie state, it was like just a freight train. The noise was so loud. I'm not too afraid to admit it. I was crying like a baby because it was just the scariest feeling in the world. It was helpless.
Elkhorn, Nebraska was one of the hardest hit areas in the state. Nebraska Governor Jim Pillen said this weekend it is a miracle there were no deaths. Rafael Romo, CNN, Atlanta.
It was horrendous. It was an horrendous storm. It touched us. we were a little farther south in Texas, and severe weather was there too. Sulphur, Oklahoma, 80 miles southeast of Oklahoma City. 30 of the 100-plus tornado-related injuries in the state were registered there. A fourth known fatality was reported in the Love County town of Marietta. Governor Stitt, as you just saw, declared a state of emergency, freeing recovery funds. A sports bar that took a major hit from a tornado was the site of multiple injuries in Sulpho, where Governor Stitt provided a Sunday afternoon update and said, quote, definitely the most damage I've ever seen as governor. By the way, the Gulf Coast also targeted thunderstorms could develop and indeed had developed in the Mississippi Valley to the Gulf Coast. That happened through the weekend, posing another risk of severe weather hazards such as hail, gusty winds, flash floodings, and more. This also, according to AccuWeather, localized wind gusts of up to 65 miles an hour may peak at 75 miles an hour today. While much of the plains catches their breath, the Mississippi Valley will become a focus for flooding, downpours, strong winds, and hail. A tornado or two could still not be ruled out, according to AccuWeather senior meteorologist Bill Dager. He added that torrential rain is the biggest concern for the system that is approaching the lower Mississippi Valley in southern states, possibly affecting the population centers like Jackson, Mississippi, New Orleans, Mobile, Alabama. Nebraska and Iowa could see these winds as well. In Nebraska, the National Weather Service office in Omaha said more storms could be developing today. The worst weather was expected later Sunday afternoon and indeed into today. A hazardous weather statement for parts of Nebraska and Iowa warned that strong to severe storms may develop with wind gusts up to 60 miles an hour, hail up to the size of quarters, and a tornado or two. The Weather Service said that there could be another risk for severe weather today. Keep an eye on the weather, especially if you're going to be outdoors. The National Weather Service in Des Moines, Iowa, also discussed this. Preliminary reports indicate at least 10 tornadoes struck central Iowa during the Friday storm front. This based on initial damage information. More damage could come throughout the weekend and will be better assessed today. Severe storms may develop with uncertainty. If it does, large hail, the main threat, damaging winds, a few tornadoes as secondary threats. In Douglas County, Nebraska, which includes Omaha, chainsaws are buzzing at this hour as residents are clearing the debris in their town. Sheriff Hansen, that's Aaron Hansen, lauded locals for their efforts, but urged the curious to stay away to allow roads to be cleared and cleanup to continue. The quote, tornadoes of this size hit major urban areas and cause major damage with no confirmed deaths or serious injuries. Thousands of people turn out to help. Is this God reminding us we need to be kinder to one another? Most assuredly, that is the case. Also contributing to that report from USA Today was Reuters. And so it's kind of a rite of spring as the atmosphere begins to heat after a winter snooze. Throughout the spring, there are air currents that heat up in different parts of the planet, and they collide into each other and create these storms. It's normally both a rite of spring and fall for the same reasons. As the temperature begins to cool off on the planet, again, we have these colliding masses of air that create these kinds of storms. I've been living with this for a very, very long time in various places in the United States. It's not like this doesn't happen very often. All I can say is that God bless those people that are being affected by all of this. And we certainly have them in our thoughts and prayers as we continue looking at some of the damage. It's amazing. I cannot say that I have seen a tornado, but I do know that one got very, very close right over there a few years ago, and it moved fortunately to the northeast away from us, but it was right there. And your blood runs cold when you hear the sirens start to wail, and you say, is this the time that we go to our little hiding spot? And is everybody here? Have you counted for everybody? Have you taken your dog and so on into that safe space? And there are all kinds of things that happen. quite literally, in a storm like this during the daytime, what you will see is you will see the sky turn this peculiar shade of green. And that's because the sunlight, if there is any available, because the clouds are very, very thick usually. But sometimes there's enough sunlight so that you can see this rain coming down in torrents, and the sunlight shines through that and does indeed turn the sky green. I have seen in my times, I've looked up in the sky and seen circular motions, which is the precursor for a tornado. Fortunately, it blew past our house before there was indeed a funnel cloud sighted. I was in Oklahoma. I used to live there, and I remember driving one night. We were coming back from a radio station personal appearance, and it was raining cats and dogs, and there was hail. It was about the size of marbles. And as we drove, suddenly the rain stopped, but the hail continued. We would find out later on that evening through news reports that we had just driven under a funnel cloud. And it was frightening. It truly is. As I mentioned, I was in a southern part of Texas for a thing I was doing. And indeed, we were warned about tornadic activity in our area. There wasn't much we could do about it. It happened in the middle of the night. But we did look at each other and went, well, okay. I wonder if we're going to got hit by a tornado. And then we did what most people do under circumstances like that. When it is in the middle of the night and you're wondering whether or not you are going to get hit with severe weather, you simply turn over and go back to sleep. There's really nothing you can do. You're in a position where, yeah, okay, you might want to take shelter. But in the case that we were confronting, there wasn't really much shelter around. And once you hear a tornado, it's far too late. As you could see from that brilliant CNN report, that it does sound like a freight train bearing down on you. And no matter where you are, whatever situation you're in, that's not the time to go outside. So you may not necessarily be in the strongest cover possible, but some cover is better than no cover. And since you're in the middle of the night, running around in your pajamas is not a good thing to do, especially when you don't have a whole lot of light and you're wondering what the heck is going to come up next. A bunch of guys running around in their underwear or their pajamas seeking a stronger building, not necessarily the thing you're going to do. So we just went, okay. And we rolled over and went to sleep. And fortunately, we did not suffer the fate of those people in Oklahoma and other places in the United States. And we were able to try to get some more fitful sleep and dodge that bullet. But it does happen. And there are many things you can do. Go to an interior room of your house. Stay away from windows. Bathrooms are usually very well located for these kinds of things. And yeah, take a blanket and jump into your bathtub. Kind of hard to do in our house because we're tall people and bathtubs are bathtubs. And then when you add a Rottweiler, everybody hiding under the blanket is kind of a weird experience. I've actually experienced it. It's kind of strange. But as we bring you this report, it's been something that has been very, very difficult to deal with for an awful lot of people, and you need to keep them in your prayers because that does work. It is comforting to a level, and it is something that I hope that you have time for today, as those people are indeed suffering. They are indeed in a position where they are trying to rebuild their lives freshly ruined by last night's storms. This is the Wells Report. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. Mike says, I recommend getting a storm shelter. That's a very cool thing to do. I absolutely suggest it as well. It takes about, depending on what size of storm shelter you want to have, you normally can dig a hole in your backyard and have an entrance into it and save yourself from a lot of problems. I suggest absolutely looking into that if you happen to live in what's called the tornado belt. And we here in North Texas most assuredly live there. This is the Wells Report. Again, our telephone number is 817-379-2172. More of this broadcast continues next.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
Good morning. This is the Wells Report. As you may have noted, I have been gone for the last few days. This is something that goes with springtime weather, which is there are a lot of things to do when it comes to training with the Texas State Guard. Before I go any further, I want to explain that as a Texas State Guardsman, I'm proud to serve the people of Texas, but nothing I say on this broadcast has anything to do with the official policies or information coming from the Texas State Guard or the Texas Military Department, who are the people that are our boss. And then the Texas Military Department's boss is the governor of the state of Texas, and that's Greg Abbott. So nothing I say has anything to do with any of those organizations or our governor. But we've been training hard because beginning in June, as we talk a little bit about devastating weather, hurricanes are the storms of the season, and they occur mostly out in the South Atlantic, and then sometimes move into the Gulf of Mexico. When they move into the Gulf of Mexico, they take aim usually at this large coastline of Texas, and we go into those storm scenes and work with the people there that have had their lives devastated. I have been in those circumstances. I've seen the results of those circumstances. It's been an eye-opening experience for me as the Texas State Guard declared first responders here in the state of Texas. We do our best to help our neighbors, and that's exactly what they're doing in all the parts of the Midwest shattered by these storms. Anyway, you got to learn how to do all that stuff. And I just got back from Texas State Guard annual training, which was days of fun and frivolity and aches and pains. It is one of those things where, you know, you look forward to it and you get involved in it and you run yourself ragged and you don't sleep. And there are all kinds of things to learn, both from a standpoint of how we train for disaster response and lots of other things, by the way, search and rescue, being able to take a compass and a map and go anywhere you want to and arrive at an exact point. And doing all of these things is what we do. And we had a whole bunch of other things, other courses, medical courses, and other things. And I survived it all. Now, you may have noted that the week before this last week, I was privileged to teach at the Non-Commissioned Officers Academy. I'm one of the members of the cadre. I get to train new sergeants for the state of Texas and the Texas State Guard, and that is a sincere privilege. Also, I did such a great job at the NCO Academy that I now get to go and teach at our basic training. Basic training happens several times a year, and the cadre we take brand new people and we turn them into Texas State Guardsmen. And I have had the privilege of being appointed to that staff, which is going to happen next Wednesday. So week before last, it was the NCO Academy. This week, it was annual training. And because I did such a great job, I get to go 3 weeks out in a row. My goodness gracious, I feel like a professional soldier. And that's, of course, because I am. But the other thing about it is that it does take an awful lot of time. Now, this last weekend, speaking of time, I noticed something that has turned into a very disturbing pattern. Our wedding anniversary was this weekend. It was the 27th. And I wasn't here. So if you have any suggestions on how you can... It's not that I forgot the wedding anniversary. I can't. Because I picked 4/27 as our anniversary date, as our wedding date. And 4/27 just happens to be a wonderful high-performance racing engine, so I would never forget. I know it's ridiculous. Anyway, so is there any way to get yourself out of trouble when you're a Texas State Guardsman and you're on deployment during your anniversary? Do you have any tips, helpful things that I can do, especially since I'm leaving in a couple more days? Help me, please. For God's sakes, help me. Help me, please. For God's sakes, help me. This is the Wells Report. We'll continue next as this April 29th continues.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
News analysis, analysis. News. Hey, it's Monday. You know, it takes a while to rev up the old tongue muscles. I'm just saying. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Mike says maybe a bottle of fine wine from Hunt County. Maybe. We were talking a little bit about the fact that I was on State Guard deployment during my 29th wedding anniversary. Oops. Help me out of trouble. I sure would appreciate it. Speaking of trouble and tragedy, 2 people are dead, 1 person in critical condition. This after an oversized load disconnected from an 18-wheeler. This happened over the weekend. It pinned a vehicle beneath it, and it happened in Temple, Texas. Emergency crews responded to the incident about 90 miles north of Austin at 11:20 a.m., found the load, which weighed 350,000 pounds, on top of a vehicle carrying 3 people at the intersection of Highway 36 and 317. That's pretty much in downtown Temple. This according to Temple's Fire and Rescue Facebook page. The Temple Police Department was also called to the scene. It took EMS 4 hours to safely remove the driver from the vehicle. He was then flown to Baylor Scott and White Health with life-threatening injuries, according to officials. God bless all of them. Police told USA Today that an investigation is still underway, but declined to comment further. Police are asking that anyone with information regarding the incident call the Temple Police Department at 254-298-5500. That's 254-298-5500, or the Bell County Crime Stoppers at 254-526-8477. You can make an anonymous tip there at Bell County Crime Stoppers, 254-526-8477. Tips can also be sent anonymously through bellcountycrimestoppers.com. That's Bell County Crime Stoppers, all one word, .com. So there is a report. This comes from KWTX Television. This in Temple, Texas. They gave us the very sad and horrific news over the weekend. Let's take a look at that report as we continue here on the Wells Report.
Major intersection in Temple have been shut down for hours after a crash laid an 18-wheeler hanging off of a bridge and claimed the life of 2 people. It happened near the intersection of Highway 36 and 317, about a mile down the road from the John Miller Central Texas Regional Airport on Airport Road in Temple. Here's pictures from that scene. Police say that an oversized load had come off of its trailer, causing to pin a car underneath. There were 3 people inside the pinned car and 2 people died, and the other one was pulled from the car and life flighted. The load pinning the car was about 350,000 pounds. Emergency crews on the scene say it took about 4 hours to safely remove the driver. Temple Fire and Rescue was assisted by 10 other units and 25 personnel to help. The road remained closed as of 5:30, and if we learn more, we will let you know.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Did you see the size of that thing? It was like there were 2 or 3 18-wheel trailers, which probably makes it somewhere in the vicinity of a 52-wheeler. Good heavens to Betsy. That thing was gigantic, and it was going through a major intersection. Don't know exactly how that accident occurred, but we can say that because Crime Stoppers is involved, there may have been some nefarious activity. Certainly maybe not calculated, but certainly devastating, happening right there in front of that very, very large load. I've never seen a load that big being moved on a road, ever. There is other transportation news that we should talk about. A Delta Airlines flight was returning, hang on just a couple of seconds. There we go. A Delta Airlines flight had to return to JFK after an emergency slide, those things that look like, giant rafts that come out of the side of an airplane to get you out of the airplane quickly, separated from the aircraft in flight. It apparently just came out in flight. According to Delta, Flight 522 LA received a priority to return to the airport. This after the crew saw an indicator light related to the right overwing exit and heard a non-routine sound in their right wing or near the right wing. Quote, as nothing is more important than safety to our customers and people, Delta flight crews enacted their extensive training and followed procedures to return to JFK. We appreciate their professionalism and our customers' patience for the delay in their travels, and we hope this carefully worded statement covers our butt for a second. Okay, that last part wasn't there. I added that. The flight was operated by a 33-year-old Boeing 767. This according to flight data from airfleets.net. Passengers were accommodated on a different flight later in the morning. There is a report coming to us. This from ABC. I believe it's ABC Channel 4. I'm sorry, NBC Channel 4 in Los Angeles. Let's take a look at this report this morning.
Tonight, a mid-air scare for passengers on board a Delta flight leaving New York for Los Angeles after an emergency slide fell off the aircraft shortly after takeoff.
Once the floor started rattling, then it got.
I didn't realize it was
the floor was rattling though.
Yeah.
A group of students among the 183 passengers and crew on flight 520 departing JFK around 8:30 a.m. today.
Delta 520, yeah, we got an indication that the right wing slide latch on the door, one of the latches is showing an open indication.
Moments later, the pilots declaring an emergency.
I was going to pick up a slight vibration and some banging noise from that right wing slide, but so far everything's pushing normal.
Eventually, deciding to head back as soon as possible.
We plan on returning back to Kennedy, have maintenance take a look at it. We are starting to get a little bit of vibrations on that right side.
The 33-year-old Boeing 767 landing safely back at JFK about a half hour after it took off. Aerials showing crew examining the plane on the tarmac. In a statement tonight, Delta saying in part, it was observed that the emergency slide had separated from the aircraft. Delta is fully supporting retrieval efforts and will fully cooperate in investigations. Tonight, those passengers finally reaching LAX after they were placed on a different plane.
It's one of those things you just never want to hear, that we have to turn our plane around because something is falling off. That's just a scary thing to hear.
Now, nearly everyone we spoke with complimented the crew. They said they kept everything calm. That aircraft has now been taken out of service, but with that slide that fell out, still hasn't been located yet.
Yeah, and by the way, that was from ABC News. There are a couple of different stories about airplanes. We're going to cover the next one here in just a couple of seconds. But yeah, can you imagine? Can you imagine flying along, then all of a sudden you hear and feel vibrations, et cetera, et cetera. That one, by the way, was from New York. This one was from LA. And this one was indeed from KNBC in Los Angeles, talking about another mess that happened. And we'll bring that to you. It was a Lufthansa aircraft, and it also involved another Boeing 747 jet, or another Boeing jet. This one, a 747, operated by Lufthansa. It ran into a couple of bumps as it landed at LAX airport in Los Angeles. There was video footage of the landing. It was captured by Airlines Video Live. It shows the aircraft skidding on the runway, bouncing off the ground as it attempted to land. Yeah, this one was kind of serious. And okay, so this one is also from ABC7 in Los Angeles, not KNBC. Although I assure you, we do have a KNBC Los Angeles Channel 4 report coming up. I just don't know what it is. We'll make our way through it as we try to get our crap together after a very difficult run of days with AT and Texas State Guard. Let's move on. Here is that report.
A live stream catches the moment a large jet performs a touch-and-go landing at LAX. Take a look.
We're getting that go around. Holy moly.
No kidding. Holy moly. Airline Videos Live was streaming on YouTube yesterday when the Lufthansa Airlines plane bounced after touchdown twice and then took off again after apparently failing the landing. The commentator shocked, calling the incident the roughest landing they ever caught on their broadcast. The Boeing 747 circled back and was able to land smoothly on the second try. The FAA says the incident was pilot initiated. We have reached out to the airline for comment and are still awaiting a response.
Yikes. Yeah, that's the word you use on that one. There was a very interesting landing in Las Vegas, an L-1011. This happened years and years and years ago. An L-1011, a Lockheed L-1011, was landing, and the aircraft was being piloted by brilliant pilots who initiated the automatic landing system. And it landed something like that, but stayed on the ground. It didn't have to do a go around. And the pilots were furious. You know, the landing was very, very difficult. And so what happened was they took it to their garage, and they initiated an investigation to find out. And the pilots wrote these scathing things about the automatic landing system and how terrible and awful it was, and how that it was just not working properly, et cetera. And someone needed to get in here and get this system fixed. And that's exactly what they did. They took it out there, and what ended up happening after that is the engineers very carefully went over the aircraft, found out what the problem was, wrote it all back up, and sent the report back to the pilots and, of course, their company. Turns out that particular Lockheed L-1011 did not have an automatic landing system, and the aircraft basically landed itself without pilot help. The pilots were, I don't know what they're doing now. I'm pretty sure that they're not doing what you might think they would be doing. And finally, in transportation news, this is great. The assembled group of people that do such things as, I don't know, build these public works projects and so on. Well, they are at it again. They are now starting. They've actually put concrete. They've done grading work. They have started the job of building a high-speed train from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. Los Angeles to Las Vegas. And here is the glowing report of the beginning of that engineering triumph on the Wells Report.
The high-speed rail link will connect Vegas with existing train services in the eastern suburbs of Los Angeles. The developer says it will take about 2 hours to go each way. That's at least twice as fast as driving from LA to Vegas. The all-new electric train will zip along at 186 miles per hour. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg.
An estimated 10 million people will one day ride this line yearly, sitting comfortably on a new train, looking out the window at the Angeles National Forest.
This $12 billion high-speed system is expected to create 35,000 jobs.
The goal is to start running trains by 2028, when the Summer Olympics return to Los Angeles.
In San Francisco's Bay Area, BART used to be the future of public transportation.
These are the amenities that give people a new kind of transit experience.
But plans don't always work out. The last original BART car is now retired. In 1972, it made its debut. Billed as a space-age system.
No swaying or jolting.
Outfitted with gold carpet, upholstered seats, and the promise of a train every 90 seconds.
Free of vibration, quiet, smooth.
But after more than 5 decades plagued with low ridership, rising crime, and aging cars, BART upgraded and rolled out a brand new fleet, helping Californians connect. Elise Preston, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And yes, once again, we have this magnificent triumph of engineering as we'll have a high-speed train that will go from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, and ostensibly giving an opportunity for people in Las Vegas to travel down to the Olympic Games in 2 hours, while countless aircraft are flying over the train at twice this, more like 3 times or 3.5 times the speed. It takes about an hour and 15 minutes to fly from Las Vegas to Los Angeles and vice versa. And it probably will not cost a whole lot more money. Once again, I'm kind of a bore when it comes to trains. I really am. And I can just imagine as you're cruising through the Mojave Desert headed towards Los Angeles and the Los Angeles Olympic Games, how absolutely magnificent it's going to be when the train stops working. And how joyous you'll be able to commune with the Angeles National Forest and the Mojave Desert and watch the lizards crawl over the now dysfunctional train. It won't happen very often. And yes, you'll be going 186 miles an hour, but aircraft go at about 500 miles an hour. And I'm really kind of concerned why we're spending billions upon billions of dollars on high-speed rail. Why are we doing this? Do we actually hate ourselves? Speaking of all that, and speaking of electric transportation, there's a guy you may have heard of. His name is Bob Lutz. He is a former auto executive. Here is a guy who has built, or at least caused to build, more ways of getting around than any other human being on the planet. And I mean that, well, except with the possible exception of the Ford family. This guy has some thoughts on the boom toward electric cars and the problems contained therein. And we're going to have that for you coming up in just a couple of seconds as we continue here on the Wells Report. Our telephone number, 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Join us as we continue for Monday morning.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Good morning. This is the Wells Report. Hi, John David Wells at your service, talking a little bit about transportation and this magnificent high-speed rail project that's going to go from LA to Las Vegas and back and forth and so on and so forth. There are other projects around the country. And the pitfalls contained therein. This is a solution in search of a problem. There is a guy out there named Bob Lutz. I was referring to him before the break. He has built cars with Ford, Chrysler, and General Motors. He's a car guy. And he's been talking a little bit about electric car technology. And he says that the Biden administration has made a, quote, colossal mistake, unquote, in putting together this push for electric cars. This is from Fox Business News. According to Experian data, as of the third quarter of 2023, 1% of all registered vehicles in the United States are electric. 1%. Former Big Three Auto executive Bob Lutz explained why the EV push isn't working as buyers and suppliers are trying to figure out what to do next. And he told this story on Fox News Digital. I am not going to play any of this. You should go to Fox News Digital and check it out. That is an amazing network offering, by the way. Fox News Digital is, if you love documentary films, and I do, or documentary stories, like 60 Minutes, et cetera, this is the place to go. These people do amazing work. Fox News Digital is amazing. But as we were talking about this, Bob Lutz was a guest on Fox News and said this, quote, "The idea of electric vehicles, gradually adoption over time with even longer battery range, ever quicker recharging times, so that over the next couple of decades, electric vehicles will take a bigger and bigger slice of the pie, is fine. But trying to get it done overnight was a colossal mistake, and it just plain is not going to work." Yeah, that's what Bob Lutz said. Keeping in mind that EVs and the EV debate has become political, Lutz argued the legitimate pros exist in terms of driving electric cars. There seem to be more cons, however, in today's market. And then he made a brilliant point in this interview. He said, quote, "We've had 125 years to perfect the internal combustion engine. We've had roughly 15 years so far on modern electric vehicles with modern batteries." He said there are a lot of good things about electric vehicles. They're fun, they drive well, they're silent, and they're fast. And he's correct. I mean, you know me as a motorhead. I race cars. I love racing cars, and I think that's magnificent. I've done drag racing and sports car racing and other kinds of racing, and electric cars can move very quickly. Those little Teslas you see out there, they can rival muscle car performance. Okay, I mean these cars are quick. There is no doubt about it, and they have the same problems with turning corners like everybody else. But then again, those suspension upgrades are a part of this particular package. An energy report released last October by the Texas Public Policy Foundation concluded that electric vehicles would cost tens of thousands of dollars more if not for generous taxpayer-funded incentives. So you're saying, I don't have an electric car. I don't have to worry about an electric car. Who cares about electric cars? Well, you're paying for them anyway. Because this big government push. Your tax dollars are subsidizing the electric car industry. Why? The average model year 2021 electric vehicle would cost approximately $48,698 more to own over a 10-year period without the staggering $22 billion in your taxpayer money being handed out to electric car manufacturers through government agencies. Additionally, as of December, only 8 electric vehicle chargers were reportedly being built with funds from President Biden's infrastructure law that earmarked $7.5 billion for 500,000 chargers nationwide. 500,000 chargers is going to cost a lot more than $7.5 billion. I don't know where that idea came from, but I mean, $7.5 billion? And what are you going to do when you try to do, you pull off the freeway, you go to one of the government rest areas on the interstate highway system, and there's going to be an electric vehicle charging station there. And it's going to be something perhaps approximating the power unit of an electric diesel electric locomotive. Going to be sitting there belching carbon and so on and so forth into the air as you stand there for hours waiting for your car to recharge. Good heavens to Betsy. Tesla, many other vehicles nowadays, Bob Lutz goes on to say, as far as design, road behavior, and so forth, there are nothing wrong with them. True. It's just the American public is stubborn and they happen to like gasoline engines. I can refuel my gasoline engine in 10 minutes. I don't want to hang around a Walmart parking lot or an interstate rest area for hours while my electric vehicle recharges. Hello. And then Lutz says it's just a question of convenience and infrastructure. Just over a year ago, Toyota's president and chairman was forced to resign. After telling the Wall Street Journal he questioned whether the push for the auto industry to phase out gas-powered vehicles was the right decision. It's not the right decision. Should there be electric vehicles? Of course. By all means, electric vehicles, great. Push the technology. Sooner or later, we'll be in a situation where we see electric vehicles that can recharge in 10 minutes. I wouldn't want to get close to the recharging apparatus because there's going to be a lot of electricity going through it. But that's a story for another day. This is the Wells Report. Hour 2 is next.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
Hey, thanks for joining us this morning for the Wells Report, and make sure you share us with all your friends on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Patreon, and don't forget to check out our Substack column, which will be coming up a little bit later on this afternoon. When you do all this, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give us those thumbs up. They are really important. Check the notification box so you know when we're on the air, and whatever you do, join us every morning, Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. Central Time, for the Wells Report.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
North to south, coast to coast, around the world, this is the Wells Report. On this broadcast, we report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We do make commentary. Commentary is not news. Commentary is opinion, yours and mine. We talk about the news from an opinion standpoint. We talk about what that news means. And we have different opinions. So please, by all means, share yours. You're perfectly welcome to do so. 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. Yes, it's Monday. I'm trying to figure out how to get my brain to work. And in that, there are an awful lot of people around the country that are also trying to get their brains to work. And that is what we are reporting in the form of Palestinian protests on college campuses around the nation. They have been spreading from college campus to college campus because college students, in my humble opinion, have discovered that if they are out protesting for something that I'm going to be talking about a little bit later on, if they're out there protesting, they don't have to study. I guess that's the case, but that's a really, really expensive pastime insofar as most college kids get out of college with $200,000 worth of college loans hanging over their head. More about that coming up as well. And so, by all means, go out there and do all of this. It's something that's historic, and we'll be talking about that as well. And I'm not just talking about the history of this specific circumstance. I'm also talking about the history of college protests throughout the decades of at least our lives here in the United States. In Los Angeles, physical altercations occurred over the weekend on the UCLA campus when demonstrators breached a security barrier set up to keep people protesting the Israeli war in Gaza separate from counter-protesters. This, according to the school, in a statement. The clash came one day after arrests on at least 4 universities as demonstrators and days-long encampments in opposition to the war swept across the nation's colleges. Students are calling for a ceasefire. They want their schools to stop investing in Israeli firms that are involved with or profit from the Israeli war against Hamas. The protesters also want the U.S. to halt military aid to the Israeli war effort. UCLA has a long history of being a place of peaceful protest, and we are heartbroken about the violence that broke out, according to the school's vice chancellor for strategic communications, Mary Osako, in a statement. Though the Daily Bruin campus newspaper said one of its reporters was hit in the face with a flag, the Los Angeles Times called the demonstrations large and noisy, but mostly peaceful, as campus police broke up minor scuffles. At the Crosstown University of Southern California, the campus remains closed. This after 93 people were arrested during demonstrations on Wednesday, including the presidential candidate for the Green Party. She was arrested and got no dispensation because she was a presidential candidate. The school has canceled its main graduation ceremony amid the turmoil. And so you spend $200,000 at USC or more, it's a private university. You spend all that money and you don't get to stand there in your cap and gown and receive your diploma in a ceremony that you have earned and moreover have paid a huge amount of money for, all because of this grotesque, insidious, horrifyingly rancid, anti-Jewish bigotry. That's all this is. All these students running out trying to pretend that they're Hamas and declaring themselves as terrorists are simply anti-Israeli, anti-Jewish bigots. We're going to get to the history of these protests coming up in just a couple of moments. I'm going to differentiate and contrast the difference between these protests and protests of the past as we continue here on the Wells Report. Hundreds of protesters detained at or arrested at more than a dozen schools from New York to California since a protest at Columbia University in New York 10 days ago. Many school administrators have ordered the demonstrations removed, citing ordinance prohibiting the encampments on their campuses. All, by the way, the encampments featuring tents of the same make, model, color, catering, all manner of things, professionally produced signs. I think I smell George Soros. Do you? But there's more. There's more. President Biden is aware of the campus protests, has said nothing about them. These protests have were caused by the strong feelings of the war in Gaza has evoked. National Security spokesman John Kirby said on the Sunday news shows, this one on ABC's This Week, added that the administration believes, quote, people should have the ability to air their views and share their perspectives publicly, but it has to be peaceful. But it is not peaceful. No, these are not peaceful. People being arrested, not peaceful. The peaceful protests during the BLM riots, also not peaceful, featuring looting, murder, assault, aggravated assault, looting, all manner of other things, but also called peaceful protests, which is a denigration of the entire idea. Peaceful protests? Absolutely. You have the constitutional right for redress against the government. You do. But these people are calling for the deaths of Jews. That's not something to be taken lightly or just written off as, oh, I don't know, the flavor of the month when it comes to college protest. This is different. This is Nazism. This is anti-Jewish bigotry. And they say, oh, this anti-Semitism is horrible. It's not anti-Semitism. It's anti-Jewish bigotry. It should be called anti-Jewish bigotry. And all these people standing up waving Palestinian flags are anti-Jewish bigots. They're nothing more than that. There's nothing noble in what they're doing. They're calling for the destruction of a state protecting Jews. And they're also calling for the destruction of Jews themselves. Proudly claiming, I am Hamas. Great. Bye-bye. Good heavens. Let's get to that history. USA Today has reported that, along with the previous article that I just read. Check this out. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators have taken over parts of college campuses across the U.S. It's the latest in a decades-long string of protests ignited by political activism, some of which have spiraled into violence amid police crackdowns. In the past, free speech sit-ins quickly escalated into massive rallies. Vietnam War college demonstrations turned deadly. U.S. civil rights protests of the 60s, late 50s, early 60s, and throughout the decade of the 60s, culminating in one of the worst years this country's ever had, 1968. with all the riots from one end of the country to the other. Many people would say, I guess, under those circumstances, that while they were called riots in the late 60s, they'd be peaceful protests here in the enlightened new millennium, I suppose. The circumstances, the protests that we have seen throughout the ages were different. The story is familiar. Young people demanded changes on their campuses or in the world, and their impassioned demonstrations often escalated amid clashes with authorities. Columbia, the university at the center of the current wave of protests, have even seen similar protests before, including the Vietnam War in 1968. Demonstrations led the university to end classified war research, stop military recruitment. Among other changes, wrote Rosalind Rosenberg, a professor of history at Barnard College, for Barnard Magazine. The demonstrations today have other specific changes in mind, involving divestment from Israel, citing the deaths of more than 34,000 Palestinian people who have died in Gaza, according to Hamas, and Israelis' bombardment and ground assault after the October 7th massacre of 1,200 people. They were killed, 240 people taken hostage. Many remain as hostages to this day. Campus authorities reacted quickly, citing safety concerns, calling in police to break up encampments, and of course the students immediately turned their ire toward the police. In New York at Columbia, NYPD KKK was the chant. Are you kidding me? It's unclear whether the current protests will actually influence anything. Well, it should. What are some of the influences? One, somebody who stands up there and proudly says, I am Hamas on national television, I don't know, I think should be invited to relocate to the West Bank, where they can live their delirium. And oh, by the way, there's another story. The White House is silent regarding whether or not these anti-Jewish bigots, called anti-Israeli protesters on the pages of Fox News, whether they're going to be barred from student loan forgiveness programs. They damn well better be. Why in heaven's name would we want to take the financial burden, the self-induced financial burden of their college educations? Why should we try to pay their debt if they are indeed pro-terrorist? Please answer that question, 817-379-2172. Here's the story on Fox News. The Biden administration is silent on whether students carrying out anti-Israeli protests, spiraling on college campuses nationwide, will be barred from student loan forgiveness programs that have canceled billions of dollars in debt under the nation's 46th president. Quote, we say justice, you say how? Burn Tel Aviv to the ground, unquote. That's what protesters have chanted on the Columbia University campus. Quote, Hamas, we love you. We support your rockets too, unquote. Other chants have been heard. Colleges from coast to coast, including some of the nation's most elite schools, including Harvard, Yale, Penn, Berkeley, and others, have seen days-long protests on campus where students demand their schools completely divest from Israel as the death toll in Gaza increases. This isn't about Palestinians. This isn't about Gaza. Palestinians in Gaza have earned everything that they are suffering right now and could indeed stop all the suffering if they would simply return the hostages. But no, they don't want to return the hostages. Why? Because Hamas leadership, sucking up air conditioning and fine food and Qatar in lavish apartments and so on, watching the destruction of the people that they govern, would be immediately taken to Nuremberg and given war crimes trials and probably hung in broad daylight. You wouldn't be able to see it, but certainly pictures would be shown. And that happens immediately when they get rid of the hostages, because that's their last leverage point. And so the standoff continues, and the White House is interfering with the Israeli Defense Force to stop it. There are Americans that have been taken hostage. Where is the Biden administration on that? Nowhere to be found. And there has to be another question. So the civil rights protests of the 60s, the Vietnam War protests of the 60s and 70s. Many people could say that those were noble protests. Those were noble protests, whether you agreed with them or didn't. But the civil rights era protests are the direct opposite of anti-Israeli, anti-Jewish, bigoted protests going on right now, which tells you about the deterioration of the American Academy. It's absolutely inexcusable. It's absolutely inexcusable. That kind of bigotry in the United States is past tense. At some point, the college kids around the nation must get the news, but they're not, are they? This is the Wells Report.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
This is the Wells Report. I am John David Wells, KNBC, Channel 4 in LA, covered the UCLA protests. Here are some of those comments.
I am unapologetically proud to be Jewish and to be standing with Israel.
Hundreds gathered Sunday at UCLA's Dixon Plaza to show support for Jewish students after several days of pro-Palestinian protests around the country and at nearby USC.
I would not feel safe being on campus. It really makes me feel, even being back here, pity for the students who have to deal with this every day.
As Passover nears its end, Jewish students and alumni happily celebrated their culture and heritage on the green, just steps away from the pro-Palestinian encampment that expanded overnight outside of Royce Hall. The calm disrupted by calamity when a group on the pro-Palestinian side tried to break down the barricades set up between the two groups. But as the two sides came face to face, we found the lines weren't so clear-cut.
My mom's family left Iran with nothing in their pockets. My grandfather's brother was killed in the Holocaust.
I came here today because I am Jewish. A lot of my family are Zionists. As I grew older, I kind of started to gain my own perspective and, kind of started seeing like what Israel was doing to the Palestinians.
Pro-Palestinian protesters crying out for those trapped and dying in a 6-month war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza over the ongoing conflict in the Middle East.
How do you feel when they say that to you? What is your response? What is your reaction? I am devastated for the people dying in Gaza. I am devastated that Hamas takes advantage of these people.
Do you feel like you being here is doing any good?
I think it is, yeah. I feel like showing up as a collective, I think it's very empowering.
The right solution looking a little different for everyone.
If you care about peace, the only way for peace when you end the occupation.
Hamas has to be overturned.
Hard to say exactly what the solution is, but I think the two-state solution is not going to happen.
Vice Chancellor of UCLA Strategic Communications, Mary Osako, released a statement today saying, in part, UCLA has a long history of peaceful protest, and we are heartbroken to report that today some physical altercations broke out amongst demonstrators on Royce Quad. As an institution of higher education, we stand firmly for the idea that even when we disagree, we must still engage respectfully and recognize one another's humanity. Now, after the rally, a few hundred people stayed behind to continue protesting. At one point, though, Beverly Hills police joined forces with campus security to form a human barrier between the two groups. The good news is no arrests were made. Reporting live at UCLA today, Macy Jenkins, NBC4 News.
Yeah. So what we have here is we have the country recoiling about the Israeli-Hamas war, and that's understandable. But what's being lost in the narrative, mainly pushed by the mainstream media, is that somehow the people of Palestine, the Gaza, those people are somehow the aggrieved party. They're not the aggrieved party. They are being led into open warfare with Israel over a pure anti-Jewish massacre that they themselves started on October 7th. That's being lost. There's more about that coming up in just a couple of seconds. Let's take a look at the chat room. Busy Man says, if President Biden had kept his pie hole shut and left Israel alone, the war would be over by now. Sure would. He's absolutely correct. There are a lot of states that aren't allowing this, says Yvonne, Texas being included. Yeah, there was one of these that started on the campus of Texas, University of Texas in Austin, and DPS went in and shut it right down. And lots of people were arrested. And many of them are still in jail as we speak. And they should be. Anti-Jewish, ugly, anti-Jewish, grotesque, horrifying, genocidal bigotry has no place in Texas. We won't put up with it. Let's see what else. Ann notes that Hamas started the war. She also says during the 60s and 70s, many of the violent actions were inspired by the FBI, CIA, and the police department. How many of these are being inspired likewise? A good question. So Busy Man says Palestinians are the occupiers, not Israel. That has been Israel for over 3,000 years, who call themselves Palestinians, are Jordanians kicked out of their own country for violence. That's everybody's opinion, at least the opinions we have, but they are certainly worth discussing, don't you think? This is the Wells Report. Back in a moment.
Nobody wants wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. The 2024 election is unfolding before us with all the information that is fit to print. Some of it's real news, some of it's propaganda. We de-propagandize the mainstream media on this broadcast, and we do that by pointing out fact and bias. USA Today has news. Former President Donald Trump is leading President Joe Biden by 6 percentage points in a new national poll from CNN. Nearly half of voters say they're planning to place their support behind Trump this fall. 49% of those polled say they're expecting to vote for Trump in the 2024 election, compared to President Biden's 43%, according to the survey. It was released over the weekend. Trump's support remains basically unmoved from CNN's last poll in January. Biden has dropped 2 percentage points, down from 45%. President Biden does not fare much better in a five-way matchup between himself, Trump, independent candidates Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Cornel West, Green Party candidate Jill Stein. In the scenario, President Biden garnered just 33% of the vote. Trump held 42%. Kennedy polled at 16%, siphoning 13% of the vote away from President Trump and President Biden. This, by the way, points out, we point out fact and bias. What's interesting about this is these polling numbers are stretching out to the point where even USA Today is having trouble soft-pedaling the lead that President Biden has, President Trump has over President Biden. And so now you say, in this particular paragraph, in the scenario, President Biden garnered 33% of the vote. The second part of that sentence is Trump holding 42%. One would think, logically, that the higher number would go first, but USA Today is trying to minimize the news. RFK Jr. posting 16%, and then they say siphoning 13% of the vote away from Trump and Biden. They don't differentiate how much of the vote is being siphoned away from each candidate, but they do say siphoning 13% of the vote away from Trump first in the sentence, reversing what they did in the sentence before that. You might think that that is irrelevant, or you might think that it's just, so what? It's just a vagary of writing. It is not. It is calculated. It is bias. And we point that out here on the Wells Report. So USA Today is reporting the news. At least they are doing that. But they are doing it in such a way as to try to minimize damage to President Biden and maximize damage to President Trump. That bias is broad-based. It's everywhere in the mainstream media, but not here. The story goes on. Even as Trump faces 4 sets of unprecedented criminal charges, his favor among Americans has continued to rise. 55% of voters now say they view Trump's first term as a success. In contrast, 44% say it's a failure. America's tendency to look back at past presidents with rose-colored glasses is common. Still, the overall opinion of Trump's presidency has markedly increased since he left office. A January 2021 poll taken days after the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, again, more bias on the part of USA Today, showed that 55% of voters considered his presidency a failure. Where did that come from? Did it come out of the polling? Well, yeah, it came out of the polling from years ago. Why are they reporting years ago polling in a poll that was just released? Because what I said before, they're trying to minimize damage to President Biden while maximizing damage to President Trump. That's bias. CNN is the originator of this particular survey. Their coverage starts like this. Donald Trump continues to hold an advantage over President Joe Biden in the campaign and the former president's criminal trial moving forward, according to a new CNN poll conducted by SSRS. In the coming rematch, opinions about the first term of each man vying for a second 4 years in the White House now appears to work in Trump's favor, with more Americans saying that looking back, President Trump's term as a president was a success, while a broad majority says that Biden's has so far been a failure. That is, once again, we see fair reporting from a factual standpoint, but written in such a way as to try to minimize damage to President Biden. See what's going on here? The casual reader is not going to analyze this. That's why we do it. That's why we bring this stuff out. I am not reporting the news in a pro-Trump fashion. I am reporting the news in a pro-factual fashion. And I am pointing out the bias that you are constantly exposed to by the mainstream media. They are rooting for and indeed covering for President Biden as opposed to doing their absolute dead level best to create a bigger problem for President Trump that otherwise normally would be, say, soft pedaled by the facts. By the facts. You hear a lot of scurrilous coverage about these Trump trials, but you don't see an awful lot of coverage about what's wrong with these trials, do you? Well, now you have, at least in my opinion, some way of being able to figure out just exactly what you're seeing. I happen to believe that it is corrupt. I believe the mainstream media is corrupt in this, and I believe that it's awful. And I say so on this broadcast. The CNN story continues. Trump support in the poll among registered voters holds steady at 49% with a head-to-head matchup against President Biden. They don't mention, by the way, what the percentage point is for President Biden. Why? Because it has dropped 2 points in recent polling, since recent polling happened, and in this weekend's polling, it has decidedly eroded for President Biden. But once again, they just sort of leave that out. By the way, they point out that CNN's last national poll in the race had Biden standing at 43%, not significantly different from January's 45%. Okay, so it's no big deal that President Biden's support is eroding. But it is. If you take these percentages and you apply them to the national election, this is a rollicking landslide. If these votes hold true in the national election, President Biden will go from 81 million votes in 2020 to perhaps under 60 million votes. This is just an estimate on my part. Under 60 million votes just 4 years later. Why is that? I'll leave that to your imaginations and your thought process. Trump supported in the poll, like I said, holds steady at 49%. Looking back, the CNN poll says 55% of Americans now say they see President Trump's presidency as a success. 44% see it as a failure. On that, I'm wondering what the questions were. 44% of people say that President Trump's presidency was a failure? Really? How? Why? They don't say. They also don't print the actual questions being asked, do they? Why? So Trump left office days after the January 6th attack on the Capitol. 55% considered his time as president as a failure. So once again, they can't simply report the facts without going to the past for research and surveys that were biased by events of the moment. Assessing Biden's time in office so far, 61% say his presidency has thus far been a failure. 61%. 39% say it's been a success. What is interesting about that? That's the fourth paragraph in the story. Fourth. Assessing Biden's time, 61% say his presidency has been a failure. 39% say it's been a success. That's narrowly worse than the 57% who called his first year of the administration a failure in January 2022, with 41% calling it a success. So once again, they talk about the rose-colored glasses that people see when it comes to nostalgia for a previous president. And what they're doing now is they're bringing up survey information, cherry-picking information that shows a better story for President Biden. This is pervasive. This is pervasive. This is easy. This is easy. Report the story. Report the story. Report the facts. Unvarnished. In journalism school, they teach you who, what, when, where, why, how. They teach you to report the facts. They teach you to report the facts through a transparent lens. That is the salvation of American media. They are decidedly not anywhere close to that salvation as we come to this reporting today. And then they break down this and they say that, goodness gracious, Republicans are now more unified around President Trump. Democrats are that Biden's, okay, let me read this paragraph because it's written weirdly. Republicans are now more unified around the idea that President Trump's presidency was a success than Democrats are that President Biden's has been a success. Overall, 92% of Americans call Trump's time in office a successful one, while 73% of Democrats say that President Biden his presidency has been a success so far. Among independents, this is important. 51% say President Trump's presidency was successful. Only 37% of independent voters feel the same way about President Biden. If you want some real truth in that, look at the independents, because that tells the story. And that is 51 to 37% for Trump. Now, how are we going to see the overall results of the next election? How is that going to happen? Many people believe that the 2020 election vote returns were distorted. The vote count was distorted in some way, shape, or form. That's about 62% of Americans, including a lot of Democrats, by the way. So what's going to happen next time? You know, the Biden campaign has been somewhat laissez-faire. They have very carefully picked their spots where they put President Biden in public. There need to be presidential debates. They're trying to find excuses for President Biden to not debate President Trump. Can you imagine President Biden in a debate with Donald Trump when, if you go back a few years, President Ford made a statement that the Soviet Union had no real influence on Eastern Europe, which was garbage because Eastern Europe at the time was behind what was called the Iron Curtain. That was a quote by Winston Churchill, by the way. And that cost him the presidency. When you start thinking about why Gerald Ford was not elected to his first term, he was appointed, remember, by President Nixon. Why he wasn't then reelected or elected for the first time, many people point to that very moment, that one gaffe. There are a lot of other gaffes. The laugh of Kamala Harris has, for all intents and purposes, ended her chance at moving up the rung of presidential power. Can you imagine Joe Biden for a couple of hours debating President Trump? What would come out of his mouth? The latest thing coming out of his mouth was that his grandfather was eaten by cannibals in New Guinea. The New Guinea president was somewhat exercised about that, as you might expect. I mean, so when you start thinking about all these things, what are they going to do with President Biden? Are they going to try to distort the vote? Is it going to be possible with all of this polling information being reported by pro-Biden news outlets? They can't hide from it. Are these people going to try some of those same what are called machinations of distorting the 2020 election? I'm not saying they were or weren't. I'm simply reporting that there are people that believe that that was a unique election decorated by things that were not kosher on the up and up, according to Hoyle, etc. Mixing metaphors along the way. And so how is this going to work? What do you think is going to happen? 817-379-2172. What do you think is going to happen in 2024? For me, it came down to a couple of different things. It comes down to, is the last hope of a re-election of Joe Biden the possible felony convictions in a New York court or a Georgia court or any other court or in United States district/federal court? Is that their last hope to get President Biden elected? considering it's lawfare, according to most Americans. Again, a significant number of Democrats believe that. Does that immediately take the worldview of the United States into the third world? Because that's what third world countries do. They attempt to prosecute their political opposition. Is that the country we want to live in? Is that what these people will do? Take us to that abyss for the sake of a re-election of Joe Biden? Will they go that far? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Join us on the Wells Report as we continue here. And we hope once again that you stick with us as we continue for this Monday, the 29th of April, year of our Lord, 2024.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
This is the Wells Report. My telephone number, 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Our telephone number. You can join us on the chat. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, and later on today, Patreon. If you think this broadcast has any value, by all means, please share it. Share it with your friends. Subscribe to it. Ask your friends to subscribe. Give us thumbs ups. Those likes go a long way. And indeed, light the notification button so that you know when we're on the air. Occasionally, we do special reports, and I don't want you to miss those either. There is intrigue when it comes to the 2024 election and Donald Trump because recently, as reported by USA Today, he had a private meeting with Ron DeSantis. They met privately over the weekend, and they met in Miami to discuss how how DeSantis can help with the 2024 presidential campaign, as to a degree the Republican Party seems to be thinking about, if not actually coalescing with Donald Trump in an effort for the 2024 election to turn out in Republican hands. Governor DeSantis ultimately agreed to aid the former president, according to the Washington Post, which first reported the meeting. The gathering came as a surprise. Trump and DeSantis have had an icy relationship since the governor launched his failed presidential bid. After DeSantis withdrew from the 2024 race in January, Trump and aides said they had hoped to tap the governor's fundraising operation for help in the general election. Before his presidential bid plateaued, DeSantis was seen as a prolific fundraiser, a popular governor who seemed positioned to try to take the GOP into a post-Trump era, which, by the way, is being reported by USA Today as something they're rooting for. They're trying to get rid of Trump at every possible way. Every possible way. So, when DeSantis left the presidential campaign, I didn't see him doing badly. The idea that USA Today would report it as a failed presidential bid, okay, it's maybe factually accurate, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a successful campaign. The reason that I believe that Ron DeSantis was leaving the presidential race is because the idea that President Trump and Ron DeSantis as a Republican ticket holds what I consider to be a lead pipe cinch for the strongest possible presidential ticket that the Republicans could present. I'm reasonably sure that came up over the weekend, and we'll see. There are political reasons why Ron DeSantis would not be the vice president of the United States, at least run, although it would indeed set up the Republican Party for a post-Trump era with Ron DeSantis perfectly positioned for the 2028 campaign. Will they do that? I don't know. Politically, and according to the mainstream media, that would be, again, two Republican white guys running, and diversity would come up, et cetera, et cetera. There are female candidates. I like Tulsi Gabbard, but I don't think that would be helpful to President Trump in the 2024 election. I like her a lot. She's a real Democrat. She is. She's not one of these progressive idiots. The last non-progressive president the Democrats had was Bill Clinton, perhaps the last Democrat president that we'll see, unless Tulsi Gabbard gains some traction in that party. Moving on. There are other people, Tim Scott, depending on what they want to present and how the mainstream media might react to that. So that is something that I think you ought to consider as you go through your day-to-day. Something else. Look, we need to have a sense of humor about some of this. The White House Correspondents' Dinner was also over the weekend. The President of the United States did indeed have some things to say about that. I want you to look around the mainstream media and check out his speech. I have a video here, but unfortunately it malfunctioned, so I'm not able to play it. But it was very funny. The president said some very funny things. And I happen to believe that is something we need to do in this age of America. Keeping our sense of humor is something that can bridge the divide in which we find ourselves. Keep your sense of humor. Take things light. The president said some very funny things. You can find that video around the internet. Take a look at it. In many ways, President Biden was charming. And whoever wrote that particular speech did the president a huge favor. I actually genuinely chuckled. And I'm going to see if I can't get this thing back so that you can see it before we go. But that involves a finicky computer that likes to play games with me. Well, one more try here. Well, I'll do this one more time and hope we have enough time to play it. We may end up running a little long, but then again, I can do that. I'm the boss. So let me see what I can do about bringing this up to you. Here it comes, and off we go. Hang on just a second. And once again, keep your sense of humor. The president said some very funny things. Take a look for yourself on the Wells Report.
It's been a year since I delivered this speech, and my wife Jill was with me tonight, was worried how I do. I told her, don't worry, just like riding a bike. That's what I'm worried about. Of course, the 2024 election is in full swing. And yes, age is an issue. I'm a grown man running against a 6-year-old. Well, I feel great. I really feel great. I'm campaigning all over the country. Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina. I've always done well in the original 13 colonies. And speaking of history, did you hear what Donald just said about the major Civil War battle? Quote, Gettysburg, wow. Trump's speech was so embarrassing, the statue of Robert E. Lee surrendered again.
Good line. Good line.
But look, age is the only thing we have in common. My vice president actually endorses me. I had a great stretch since the State of the Union. Well, Donald has had a few tough days lately. You might call it stormy weather.
Yeah. Yeah.
What the hell?
Look, those are funny lines, okay? Just relax and go with the flow. The president had a good night at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and I'm glad he did. This has been the Wells Report. I hope you enjoyed it. We are going to be doing another show on Tuesday, and then I have more Texas State Guard business, more details coming up on that a little bit later on this week. God bless you and yours and your endeavors. And by all means, keep a smile on your face. We're going to be just fine. All this is going to work out, no matter how ridiculous people look right this very minute. We'll all rise above it. This has been the Wells Report. I will see you again tomorrow. Until then, take care. Be safe. Make great decisions, huh? Thanks for joining us.